Hi, this is Stephen with Effortless Homebuyers. At Effortless Homebuyers, we work with both sellers as well as a large investor group. So we often get the question, how long does a fix and flip even take? Because often we have investors that may not have invested in a fix and flip before, or we have sellers that haven't worked with an investor before. So this question's a good one. A fix and flip typically takes a couple months. Why I say that is because not only is there the closing of the property, which as investors were able to close rather quickly, quicker than what a typical retail buyer or an owner occupant, someone using a real estate agent, is able to do. But there is time that has to be done with the title agent and getting everything coordinated with closing. So from the moment that a purchase agreement is signed, a fix and flip has whatever the time it takes to close, which could be anywhere from 7 days to 60 days. And then from there, we have to get permits, we have to get approval, we have to get subcontractors with their bids accepted, we have to buy supplies, and then we have to conduct the actual rehab. Now, most of the rehabs that we do are in the light to mid range, but however, we do some very heavy rehab sometimes. So rehab can take as little as 2 weeks if it's just a kind of turnover cosmetic rehab, or we're doing paint, cleaning, maybe updating some finishes here and there, doing some light landscaping, that sort of thing. As soon as we start diving into the more bread and butter of rehabs, you're going to be looking at anywhere from 30 to 90 days to complete a rehab. If it's something that's a larger project where an addition's being built, we're gutting a home, it can take longer than that. The more skilled a fix and flipper is, the shorter that a rehab can take, because they can coordinate, and it's almost like an intricate dance amongst these subcontractors where people will be able to do things at the same time, but they won't be stepping over each other and getting in the way and having to redo things. You don't want to be putting in brand new floors and then painting just to find out that some paint got on your brand new floors. So once the property has been rehabbed, then there is also the marketing and staging portion of things. Depending on the market, depending on the strategy of that fix and flipper, they may be putting what's called a staging scenario in place. So staging is when you put furniture and accents and decorations around the house to help potential buyers see the potential of the property, see how the property looks once it's all lived in. Now, staging can be helpful in some markets, and it helps take a rather empty space and make it look like a home. In some other markets, though, people like to see it where it's empty, be able to paint their own canvas and not have something influence their decisions with when they buy the property. Staging can take a little bit of time, but typically not too long. That can be probably anywhere from a week to 2 weeks to have it fully staged and ready to go. You take your photography, and then you're going to be listing it on the market. When you're listing on the market, depending on how hot the market is, it can take a rather short period of time, or it can take a longer period of time. But even if it's a very hot market where somebody's already pre-approved with their loan and locks up the property as soon as it's listed, banks usually take a little bit of time to be able to close. We typically factor in about 30 to 45 days for a bank to be able to issue a standard mortgage to an owner-occupant, even if they're already pre-approved. Now, sometimes we're delightfully surprised with how quick it can go, but looking at 30 to 45 days is pretty typical, and it can often go longer than that as well, because that owner, the potential owner, the new owner, they're going to be wanting to do things like inspections. They're going to want to have it appraised, and the bank's going to need to have all this information in order to do their things. And then there's closing and scheduling the coordination. There's coordinating and scheduling the closing. So when we look at how long does it take to fix and flip a property, we're typically going to be expecting at least 3 months, if not all the way up to a year, depending on how much work a property needs. If a property is something that needs that large gut rehab, then a year could be the entire process of closing the property, rehabbing the property, marketing the property, and selling property to the end buyer.